And we're live. Hello again. Welcome to the No Lag podcast. This time we have a very special guest who flew into town to be with us. We have... Say your name.
Hi, I'm Duane.
That's right.
And Wes. You've watched some of our podcasts before.
I've watched a couple of them.
You know the MO. Everybody introduces themselves.
Well, now I do.
Oh, come on. You want to start over?
No, we've already gotten into we're way too deep in
We've
this.
gone
Too far
We've gone
now.
too far. Okay, cool. We just started our day off with Pink's Hot Dogs.
Yeah.
We wanted to get fueled up, so we went down to the famous LA Pink's Hot Dogs, and we had some good food. What'd you have?
I had the nacho cheese chili dog. It wasn't bad. It was really good. I was, if I could critique it, probably the only thing that I was slightly disappointed with was the actual nacho cheese. It wasn't very nacho. It was just like basically melted cheese. There wasn't like any nacho-ness to it. It was just like melted cheese, and that was it. Processed cheese that you get like at a baseball stadium for your nachos.
Like a Velveeta kind of stuff.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. I was looking for something more like the K Bueno stuff you get like at Costco.
It had chili though too, right?
Yeah, chili. It was chili and onions that was in it too.
How was the chili?
Chili was good, and I'm not really a chili person, and even less of a chili dog kind of guy.
Yeah.
But I was pleasantly surprised. It was very tasty, and it hit that spot where I kind of want another one, but if I did, I'd probably eat like maybe like a third of it. Right. So I think I did pretty well for just the one hot dog.
Right. What'd you have?
I had the Guadalajara dog with onions, tomatoes, sour cream, relish, and bacon. And it was quite tasty. It was very messy, though.
Yeah.
Very messy.
Gotcha. Any advice? Any advice for Pinks? How to improve that?
No.
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 It was exactly what it should be.
Yeah.
Cool. I had the El Madril, which was a jalapeno dog.
Ooh.
And it had onions and jalapenos and bacon and shredded lettuce, diced tomatoes, and guacamole. Really good guacamole.
Guacamole.
Yeah, it was really good. And the bacon. The neat thing about the bacon there isn't like they don't give you chopped up bacon. They put like full bacon strips in the hot dog bun or on the hot dog. So, yeah, I took one of the pieces and just ate it straight because I like bacon. So
yeah, it was like cooked just the way I like it too. The bacon.
Yeah.
It was like crispy, not like all chewy and fatty.
yeah. Yeah, I recommend the El Madrid. The problem with it, though, and I forgot this because I've only eaten at Pink's one other time, the jalapeno hot dog is much larger than the rest of the dogs. We post the photos on our Twitter, so you check us out on Twitter at NoLagGamers and check out the photo there. But yeah, it was big enough that they could draw a little happy face on the end of my hot dog. So it was
With mustard.
With mustard.
Not with like a Sharpie or anything.
Yeah, me too. Gross. So, that was a good way to start the day, I feel like. A good, healthy breakfast. All right, so we'll move on to...
Look, I don't know about you
To be
guys.
fair, that was more of a brunch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also,
By the time Desi got ready.
I had fruit snacks and cookies for breakfast, so...
Classic. Also, a good breakfast.
Yeah, you know. I gotta go get the dog.
Okay.
I'll be right back.
All right, go.
You guys talk about something cool.
We'll start
while
talking
I'm
about...
gone.
If you could make any hot dog, invent any hot dog, what would it be?
I don't know that I could invent a better hot dog. Hot dogs are very modular.
Yeah.
Just like pizza and hamburgers, where you can add something to it, and if you don't like it, you can always make another one. And I couldn't tell a particular topping.
Yeah, that you think should be on a hot dog that you've not seen? Captain Crunch?
Well, I couldn't tell you really. I think one thing that Pink's that I did not see on the menu, maybe I glossed over it, but one thing that several people have told me that's really good with hot dogs is cream cheese. I did not see any cream cheese hot dogs on there.
I feel like in Chicago we went to a hot dog place called Portillo's, And I think they maybe had cream cheese on a hot dog.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I understand that's a thing, but I did not see any at Pink's, and I have not yet tried it myself. But everyone tells me it's heavenly.
Are you listening, Pinks? Cream cheese on a hot dog.
So
That could actually be an interesting mix with chili. I don't know, maybe. Is there a topping or an ingredient that you think would work really good on a hot dog?
I think I'd like to try it with the guacamole. Yours looked really good, but
Yeah.
I'm gonna want the jalapeno business.
No, they didn't have a lot with jalapeno or with guacamole. I was really surprised.
Yeah, it's interesting. So I'd maybe try one with.
I think they changed up their menu though, because I feel like there was stuff on that wasn't on there. The one that I think I kind of want to try, even though I'm not a big fan of the films or the book, is the Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
Because it's got barbecue sauce and a bunch of fried onion rings on top of it. And I think that would be kind of an interesting mixture with the hot dog. So I'd like to try that. I almost feel like the hot dog should be going through the rings to like hold it to the bun.
Oh, smart idea.
But they're not.
Are you listening, Pinks?
Are you listening, Pinks? Hashtag, are you listening, Pinks? All right, let's move on to a different P. So there is a new movie coming out that is being animated.
Yeah.
I'm really excited for it. So we follow Cartoon Hangover on YouTube. And earlier this week, they announced that there was going to be a big announcement from Sony Animation. And apparently, Gendy Tartovsky, the guy who did, he did like Samurai Jack, right? And then he did Powerpuff Girls and some Star Wars stuff, is doing a 3D CG Popeye film.
Oh, interesting.
And I thought, do we need a Popeye film? Is this just like cashing in on like, the youth? It's kind of like how I felt when I heard about Peabody, Mr. Peabody. Although that film ended up being really great. I think I initially was like, oh, they're just like, gonna manipulate and alter our childhoods or whatever, and Popeye's certainly older than my childhood, but but I sort of feel like it's my childhood, from my childhood. So they released a screen test, and it doesn't have the actual voices, but it had what sounded like what should be the voices, and it was just a test for the animation. Apparently, it's not in the trailer. This thing was not a trailer. It wasn't a sneak preview. They accentuated that it's specifically for just to show people what the movie's gonna be like. It's not even a scene from the film.
Gotcha.
But it looked really, really cool. It looked really, really funny. And they're really capitalizing on physical comedy and kind of like especially like Olive Oil, because she's such a rag doll.
Yeah.
And definitely Popeye is sort of like the lovable loser who's getting beat up. So it looked like a lot of fun. I'm really excited about it. And they have the I didn't see Sweet Pea, and I don't think I saw Bluto, but there's a bunch of pirates that attack Popeye's ship, and one definitely looks like Bluto, but they didn't reference Bluto in any way. But they had that thing that I really only remember from the more modern age, but I think it's probably from the comic strips. But there's like some sort of creature that can disappear and float around and stuff. It looks like a little stuffed animal, and he's yellow. I don't even know what that thing is.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
I vaguely remember him from the newer cartoons, like when I was like from the 80s, the late 80s, but I don't remember what this thing is. So if you guys know what that floaty magical thing is, let us know.
I have to say, I was a little disappointed that it wasn't Bee and Puppycat movie.
A Bee and Puppycat movie, even though the first season has not come out yet?
I would have flipped my lid. I'm telling you.
Yeah. I would have been happy with a Bravest Warriors movie.
Oh, yeah, that too.
I feel like Catbug can hold his own in a movie.
Oh my god, yeah.
I don't know. How do you feel about Popeye?
I think this could be one of those things where, like the Peabody. I didn't see the Peabody movie, but there's some properties that they're kind of bringing back to introduce to a new generation, and a lot of times it just doesn't work out because the young generation who've never heard of these properties, they ultimately don't care, and they spin their wheels and go nowhere. So Popeye does have this kind of timeless quality to it in a way, but it's I really don't know how, if they could do it really well, they might not, but it's really too early to say. Maybe it might look cool, maybe it won't.
Yeah.
So I can't really draw one conclusion over the other about it.
The one thing that you have to have, I think, in a Popeye movie is olive oil. But she was the most uninteresting part of it to me because she's sort of just like, she's like the princess to Mario, right? Like it's just she's just like an object to be captured and rescued. And I'd like to see something else happen with olive oil. And unfortunately, it's a really short little screen test, so it's basically like pirates trying to capture Olive and Popeye trying to stop it from happening.
Right.
But I'd like to see something more with her. I'd like to see her as a character, and that's something that I felt the live action movie with Robin Williams did really well. Is that you really understood Olive Oil's side and why she didn't want to marry Bluto, right? Mm-hmm. And what she was looking for, and her turn from like hating Popeye to loving Popeye. Like you kind of get that, even though it's like a kids movie and it's really over the top and it's goofy and it's just a kind of a weird film, but it works because the characters, you understand what the characters are going through, and like wanting a baby and finding a baby and looking for your father and finding your father, and I think those things like sort of came through in that film. So I'd like to see something more like that for this film. I'd like to see some heart to it. So I don't know. Anyway.
That sounds awesome.
They just look at me.
It seems like a reasonable
Blink.
thing,
Like a
reasonable request.
Yeah, I think like sort of those really heartfelt quests are important, and that's why I think, as much as everybody loves Frozen, I think Frozen didn't really resonate with me because I didn't feel like there was some sort of epic, like, longing that anybody really felt. I mean, like the one daughter or one sister was like really looking for love, and that like bit her in the ass. So that was sort of, I don't know, that storyline was a little wasted on me. But
fun fact: I'm one of probably 8 people in this country who have not seen Frozen.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I mean, so I won't get too heavy into spoilers then, but I just, the music.
I do think you're right.
Okay.
The character development just wasn't very strong in the movie.
Yeah, I think it's also conflicted about what message it's trying to send. There's sort of a message about, there is a message about finding love, and there's also a message about being happy without love, and at times, I feel like those two messages conflict with each other in the film. So you'll have to check it out and let us know what you think.
I'll get around to it eventually.
Yeah, that's kind of how we were about it. Well, we'll see it eventually. People seem to really love that film, and kids are.
Pink's Hot Dogs retweeted us.
Yeah, I noticed. Yeah, Pink's Hot Dog retweeted us. I saw that earlier. Yeah, so so I don't know about Frozen, but people love it, and they're going to be doing a new Frozen like short next year. And I guess the characters are going to be on Once Upon a Time, or maybe already are if that's started. I don't know. I don't watch Once Upon a Time. So, do you guys watch?
I've seen like publicity stills of the characters in it, but that's all I know about it.
Yeah.
I haven't seen the show either.
Is Idina Menzel playing the character in Once Upon a Time? You think that she should, right? She's an actress. She's not age inappropriate, is she?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't know.
She's done a bunch of Disney stuff. I mean,
yeah.
She did. What's that movie? Enchanted, and then Frozen. So I don't know. That's interesting. I wonder if she's in the show. I doubt it. Somehow I doubt it. But since we're talking about Disney, I read a really interesting article the other day. It was sort of an interview with Don Hahn, who is a longtime producer and animator for Disney, and he talked about the situation with mothers in Disney films. And if you notice, like a lot of Disney films, there's always either the mother's dead, or the mother is missing, or the mother is extremely, extremely sad and despondent, or something is going on with the mother. Like, like Ariel. Who's Ariel's mom? Who's Belle's mom? Right? So he was talking about sort of, not necessarily a theory, but something that's not really talked about too much. And he said there's 2 aspects to it. One is that characters need to grow up, and that's an easy way as storytelling technique is to make characters grow up, is to have them longing for this thing, or trying to overcome not having this thing, or trying to find the thing. And so doing something with the mother is a really easy thing, and it helps children connect to the characters. But he said, this was the part that I thought was really interesting. I didn't know this. So when Walt Disney started making money, he had all this money, he was like, Mom and Dad, I want to buy you a house. So we bought them a house. And they moved into the house, and they had a housekeeper. Apparently the house had a bad, like a water heater or something. Mm-hmm. And it leaked, and it caused some sort of fumes. And the housekeeper came into the house and found the parents passed out and pulled them out onto the lawn, and his mother died. And apparently Walt Disney felt extreme grief over the loss of his mother. Rightfully so, but he actually felt like it was his fault that he killed his own mother.
Yeah.
And this apparently is not really a secret, but it's not something that's really talked about at Disney, but apparently that has informed a lot of how the Disney films are written. I thought that was
interesting.
It gives me it gives me goosebumps to think about that, how that changes how I see Bambi. It changes how I see Cinderella. I don't know. It's interesting.
Yeah.
On the flight down here, I was actually listening to the Cracked podcast, and they had an episode called Disney Orphans, and they talked a lot about not just characters in Disney films, but also especially movies in the 80s where a lot of characters where they didn't have a father figure or they didn't have parents, and that a lot of these stories rely on kids being raised by their uncles and other families and such. So it's very apt that you mentioned that. So Disney Orphans, it's an episode of Cracked podcast. I think I recommend checking out though, because they make a lot of really interesting points.
Yeah, we'll link it. We'll put it on the Pinterest board for sure.
Yeah.
It's interesting that you mentioned sort of the 80s, because that was sort of the age of divorced families, like the 70s.
That's exactly what they cite.
Yeah, and it's interesting if you go back and you look at my favorite film, E.T. I don't come from a divorced family. I came from a family where my parents met at the age of 15 and were together until my father died at the age of 55. So my parents were together for a long time. For 40 years. So I feel like I probably shouldn't identify so deeply with a film like E.T., but E.T. is, Elliot doesn't have a dad. His mom's struggling to raise these kids on her own. And, that to me is sort of, E.T. is the perfect 80s film, because it represents sort of what people were going through at the time and what people felt. And of course we grew up at that time. So of course I feel that way. Goonies is really similar, where, you have these sort of kids who are sort of left to their own devices because their parents are not really together, or they're split up, or you don't know where they are, or they're busy. That became a really popular thing in the 80s. So that's a really interesting observation, 80s specific.
Yeah, I think it is. It's a big shift from kind of how our parents grew up, for sure. I mean,
right.
Divorce certainly had a certain stigma for a long time and wasn't really something that people did, at least not often.
Yeah.
And, and then, you didn't have that growing up, but I'm sure you had plenty of friends whose parents got divorced. And
it's weird. I can't really think back to many of my friends that had until high school. I can't really. I'm sure I did.
it just didn't.
It's not something that I ever processed as a kid.
Yeah. Whereas me, my life was full of divorces.
Yeah, right.
I mean, my mom and both of her sisters have had at least 3 husbands. When I was a kid, how girl children, maybe you guys don't know, but, they fantasize about their wedding. Mm-hmm. They dream about, what kind of dress they're going to wear and how, if it's going to be big or small or outside or whatever, and it's like a thing that you dream about.
Is that real?
When you're a kid.
Is that real for girls?
Absolutely. And I think, maybe
you hear it, but
maybe less so today, but it definitely is a thing that happens. I mean, I think that for girls, it's almost like an attainable form of princess. It's like, you're never going to be a real princess. Most girls do. You might think, oh, maybe I'm going to meet a prince and marry him, but especially in America, there's no princes. We don't have that type of a government, so right. it doesn't really connect.
Right.
But when you see a bride, they're a princess. They have
Sure.
this big beautiful dress, and they have love, and they all these people are surrounding them. They're at a ball or whatever, essentially, and so it's kind of like, I think that's why little girls dream about it. It's not so much about being married, it's about the wedding itself. It's about the celebration and the beauty.
I never thought about it that way.
Yeah,
Being an attainable princess,
right?
And you just like
I think I've heard that story in the theory before. I just haven't thought about it in a long time.
But for me, it was like, okay, at my first wedding, I'm gonna have blah 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 blah. But at my second wedding, it's gonna be smaller, and I'm gonna have this kind of dress. Like that was just how I thought it happened. Like we're gonna have multiple weddings.
How are you feeling about that now?
Now I'm like, no, one wedding was plenty, and I'm good with what I have. But
yay.
You might feel a little disappointed though, because now you don't get that card punch, and at the fifth wedding you get like a 3 foot long or something like that.
3 foot long. Well, I think it just, for me, it was like, I could have this beautiful wedding, but I could have different kinds of beautiful weddings,
Yeah.
Like
different kinds of beautiful weddings. Have one outside, have one in a church, have one in a castle.
Exactly. I could have one with a blue dress, I could have one with a white dress, I could have one with a big flowy dress, and one with like a, it just was, it seemed like that was normal to me.
Interesting.
Now I know it's maybe not so normal, but
right.
It's certainly not something to strive for.
Right. Pay attention, kids.
Yeah.
So, let's stick on Disney for another minute here, because I saw something really adorable the other day. Did you see they recreated the DuckTales opening?
I know of it, but I didn't actually watch it yet.
So they recreated the DuckTales opening shot for shot with real ducks. It's adorable.
Hey, come here. Come here.
Dog's barking again on the podcast.
Let you out. You were.
It's our signature podcast thing. Is the dog barking?
Come here.
So
you were happy with your Kong for like 2 minutes.
So they recreated DuckTales opening, and I actually watched it. I'm not sure what site had it. Maybe Kotaku had it, where they had both versions on YouTube embedded on the webpage.
Oh yeah.
So I clicked both of them really fast, play on both, and then I muted the volume on one, so that way I was hearing the audio and I could see them both animate, the animation, and it's actually the first time I watched the real ducks, it didn't actually. I was like, I don't remember any of this stuff. Then I watched it with the cartoon one happening at the same time, and I was like, oh, I get it. It's pretty spot on. It's actually pretty impressive that they did this with the ducks.
I would recommend if you want to do the two at the same time. There's a site called YouTube Doubler, where you can go up to videos at the same time, and it'll play them both at the same time.
That's a great idea.
So,
all right, we'll link YouTube Doubler.
Yeah. So at first I was like, how's they gonna do like swimming in money? Like I wasn't.
It's cute, right?
There's some green screen involved, but they do it really well.
Well, the swimming in money, they like built a thing and then cut a hole out and stuck the duck's head through it.
Yeah.
It's like, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's like, there is some green screen, but they did like a lot of practical things. But the funniest part of that video to me is all the hats on the ducks.
All the hats on the ducks, yeah. The Huey, Dewey, and Louie hat, and the Scrooge McDuck hat.
Top
the bow,
hat, yeah.
And the bow on the little girl duck.
It just cracks me up.
Libby. Yeah, so if you haven't had a chance to check out the DuckTales opening, if you're a fan of DuckTales, you definitely need to see this, because it's adorable. So speaking of adorable, Minecraft. We talk about Minecraft a lot on this podcast. Minecraft's kind of adorable. Little blocky figures.
It's true.
Dwayne's not a Minecraft guy.
I have yet to play Minecraft. It's one of the things that some particular people that I know of like to nag me to play, and I just haven't gotten around to it.
I just keep trying to extol the greatness of it. I understand what Dwayne's saying, though, because when we first played it,
we were like,
Nick showed it to us, and we were like, eh. And then he's like, come over and play Minecraft again. So we went over and played Minecraft again, and all of a sudden it just like clicked for me. And I think it was because I got further into the game, and I was able to get better tools to mine with. And then I was like, oh, I've got this material now, and I've got this material. I'm going to build a castle. And so then it was like, I was only limited by what I could think of.
Yeah.
So my castle structure, the rooms, and how tall it was, and whether it had parapets and towers and things, that was all on me. And so then it kind of clicked for me. But so Microsoft bought Minecraft for $2.5 billion.
just recently.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Well, some people don't like it.
They technically bought Mojang.
Mojang. Yep.
Yeah.
But we all know that's Minecraft.
Yeah. I mean, we do, really.
So if they have some other projects in the works, there's Scrolls that was in the works for a while.
I heard those are maybe just going to go away now.
They kind of went away anyways. I think
Yeah.
we hadn't heard anything about them for a long time, and I think they probably were already gone. Or they're just keeping them super secret. But
super secret probation.
a lot of people were kind of like, you know, I don't want Microsoft. Microsoft's an evil corporation, blah, 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 blah.
How do you feel about that, Dwayne?
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of like big corporations out there. I think it's easy to attack a big corporation that's got a lot of money. I mean, Microsoft's got a lot of money. I think they're like $360 billion.
Yeah, and even in terms of the game industry, like even people hate. There's a lot of hate shoveled upon EA and Activision. EA people and the consumers were trying to name it as the most evil corporation in America, which I think like 2 years ago it actually got the title of most evil corporation in America.
And that's weird to me when we have like some of the banking institutions and things like that. It's like
Oil company.
Comcast. Cable companies.
Yeah, your cable company. Look at your cable company, everyone.
Yeah, jeez.
As we put this out on the internet to our cable company. But you know, yeah, I mean, that's a good point. It's easy to hate a big company like that and overlook a lot of like great things that they do. I mean, everybody seems to really like Apple. Not everybody, but a lot of people seem to really like Apple. But it's another big evil company, you know.
Yeah,
it's like,
and I think there might be like some gradual backlash against them a little bit, but I don't think that they're going to get to the point that people were hating on Microsoft in the 90s.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
Listen,
I think. Oh, go ahead.
I just was going to say, like, you know, I think that there are certain sort of necessary evils that come with being a gigantic corporation.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that on the whole, Microsoft handles themselves fairly well. Hey,
Right.
hey.
Like we don't have to forget that like that Bill Gates would like in the early days would steal to get to where he is now.
Yeah.
Like we don't have to forget that. But that's not who the company is now. First of all, he's not even there anymore. So, but that's not who the company is anymore. And that dude is giving like 75% of his money away to charity. So it's like, you know, he's kind of atoning for his sins now, I think.
Yeah.
But, you know, and I'm not condoning stealing other properties, but, you know, it did put him in a position to be able to do some of the things that they're doing now and sort of being innovators.
Are you saying that he's Robin Hood? Because it
I'm
feels
definitely
like
not saying he's Robin Hood. I'm definitely not saying he's Robin Hood, but he is providing a lot of clean water for people and, you know, computers for schools and yeah, I mean
vaccinations and such.
And fighting against Ebola right now. So, you know, there is some good going on, but so it's easy to hate them. But I was thinking about the number of like $2.5 billion, which seems like a lot of money. But then Microsoft is worth $360 billion. And so I guess apparently in the first day their stock got a bump because of buying Mojang. Yeah. And so in the one day they essentially made the money back just on stock. Now stock can go back down, but essentially what they spent their money, so essentially it's like a write-off. But even if you like exclude that, there's some weird stuff where like I guess if you over the course of a year that will make enough money, make more money than $2.5 billion sitting in the bank earning interest. It will make more than that. Mojang is projected to make more than that. So technically they've already made their money back. That's crazy. Insane that they could spend $2.5 billion and already have their money back, basically. I don't even know what I'd do with $2.5 billion.
No, I don't either.
Buy a baseball team.
Right.
Or at least heavily invest in a baseball team.
Yeah.
We know which one.
We all know.
We all know which one. I guess Notch is leaving. The guy who's the head of Mojang. Mm-hmm. But, you know, and again, I've read some people were kind of like, you know, well, this is what Microsoft does. They buy it and he's out of here. But Notch is the one who instigated the sale, apparently. That's the rumor, at least, is that it was Notch's idea. He went to Microsoft. It wasn't like, I'm sure they had a lot of offers from a lot of other people, but he went to them and said, you know, are you interested in buying the company?
He may have been looking to get out in the first place. He may be ready to
apparently
move on from it.
The word on the street is that he was sick of the fan bullcrap. You can only police people for so long.
I don't think that's a rumor. He actually explicitly said that's why he left.
But he explicitly said that's why he left?
Yes. He said that I started Minecraft as like this fun little personal project, and it got bigger and bigger, and then it became what it was. And this wasn't really. I mean, I'm glad that it became something that people enjoy, but I want to go back and do something smaller now. I don't want to be known as just, and I don't want to be known for and also manage this giant behemoth that's become. I want to be able to do something else, and so he's kind of shedding the company so that he can go on and do this other side project that he wants to do.
Else.
Exactly, because he doesn't want this to be like some albatross around his neck that he has to constantly attend to every time though, and have the very rabid fan base that's telling him what he's doing right and what he's doing wrong.
Well, I understand that, but I've heard some other things that are really specific fan things, which was that they instituted this thing on the PC where people were charging. They would set up a server and they would say, you can host on my server for this price. And so Mojang set out some rules, and they said you can charge for server, but then everything else is free. Okay. You can't charge people. You can't sell weapons. You can't sell items to people to help them with their Minecraft. They have to figure out, go into creative mode or do whatever it is they're doing. So it's either you give them the server space for free, or you charge them for the server space, but that's it. And that apparently pissed a lot of people off, that they couldn't sell items. And there was a big furor over that, and that was the last straw for Notch, apparently. That's what I hear. So again, Notch isn't here to address this, so we can't say for sure that's what it is. But so supposedly...
Well, why don't you ask him to come on our podcast?
Yeah. No. It's not going to happen. That dude's got a lot of money to spend right now. He doesn't have time for us.
I'm pretty sure he's on vacation right now.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. So, from that silly fan outrage, it's like, it's their game. They have a right to say what you can and can't do in the game. They can make the rules, but I don't know.
It's also his right to sell it and leave if he wants. I mean,
absolutely.
He doesn't have a responsibility to stay.
Yeah. No, that's totally true. Totally true. All right, let's move into the TV and movie realm a little bit here. There's something I want to talk about. That Desi just got to sit there and just wait.
Oh,
we're only gonna say for just
or plug ears and go la 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 la. Can't anything la la la.
Just for just a moment because we've talked about it in 2 podcasts briefly, and I don't want to. We've talked about Minecraft in multiple podcasts. I don't want every episode to be the Minecraft and Sons of Anarchy hour. So, Sons of Anarchy came back.
Now I feel like we need to make a Sons of Anarchy Minecraft world.
Yeah, maybe. On motorcycles and stuff. Build Teller Moro Automotive.
Yeah.
So, you're all caught up, and I'm all caught up, and you're back in Season 3. So we have to be really careful. We don't want to talk about the big things that happened at the end of last season.
Or who's still alive, or who's dead, or who's gone, or whatever.
Anything like that. So,
spoilers.
How did you feel about the premiere episode of Sons of Anarchy?
I kind of wondered how the lead was going to be able to get out of that pickle that it seemed to be at the very end of the season finale. So they did it in a meaningful way. So it's almost kind of a back to business kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of giddy about how this is the last. It's a 13 episode season, right?
I think so.
Yeah, 13. Yeah. So and they're 3 episodes in, so we got 10 to go, and so I'm really giddy to see how it's all going to wrap up.
Right.
So and I do have like my own ideas of how it's going to end.
Yeah.
So
the wheels are turning, and that's what's exciting is you can see that the wheels are turning, and you don't know where the wheels are going to take you.
Exactly.
And that's what's really exciting about the show right now. So if you still, after having heard me talk about the show for several podcasts, if you're still not watching Sons of Anarchy, shame on you. So, all right, that's all we're going to say about it. That's enough of a teasing you, and I was glad we were able to talk about it.
P.S. My mom says she needs season 6. She's watching season 7, but she says she's a little lost. I was like, well, why are you watching it?
Yeah, don't watch it.
She can't help herself.
But on the note of one of those cast members, Katie Seagal. Seagal, right?
Seagal.
Yep, just like Steven.
She was on Married with Children. There's a rumor right now Married with Children is making a comeback. That show was on for 11 years. 11 years. And so the show's now going to be about Bud Bundy growing up with his own family. And there's a question about whether David Faustino is going to come back and play Bud Bundy or if somebody new is going to play him. I hope they bring David Faustino back because we know that guy needs work. So, I don't know. Did you guys watch Married with Children?
Yeah.
I watched it irregularly. I watched it on occasion.
Yeah.
But I wasn't a dedicated fan of it.
I feel like I grew up watching it. Is that weird? Like,
No,
should I not have been watching that show as a child?
Probably not, but
don't
I
really
did too.
know.
Though. You know,
That's not really a show for kids.
I remember like watching it with my parents, it was like a family event, not like
it's a sitcom.
not like I watched it by myself and I shouldn't have been.
Yeah, right.
I am kind of surprised though that I'm pretty sure my folks let us watch it, and that was definitely a show that I don't think I think it's a show that I'm kind of surprised they would, because my folks were like really defensive about what we watch. Like my mom wouldn't let me watch You Can't Do That on Television.
Really?
When I was a kid, she wouldn't let me watch it.
Love that show.
So the fact that I couldn't watch Married with Children that I could was kind of like, I can watch this, but I couldn't watch this years ago. Well, all right.
Alanis Morissette was on You Can't Do That on Television.
Yeah.
My mom wouldn't let us watch The Simpsons.
But you could watch Married with
But we
Children.
could watch Married with Children. I'm not sure she really thought that through.
Yeah.
I
One
think she
dysfunctional family
Well,
over
and
another.
I think that she kind of thought that like we might be more influenced by like a cartoon, by like cartoon
violence
children,
or
cartoon children misbehaving,
Yeah.
than like actual children misbehaving.
Well, yeah, their children
was
were also
like-
teens and
Yeah,
were,
they weren't-
dealing with like sex and stuff like that. So.
Right. Whereas Bart Simpson is like a 10-year-old hooligan. He's like
Spray painting stuff and
spray painting
dropping
stuff
cherry bombs in
and-
toilets.
and yeah,
El Barto.
Alberto.
things that we might actually try to emulate.
Right.
Which I've since had conversations with my mom about it, because it comes up in conversation. She knows we watch it, and she'll be like, I just don't get it. I don't know why you watch that show. And I'm like, I know that when I was a kid, it probably seemed like a really bad show to you, but if you actually watched it just by yourself as a, I don't know what the word is I'm looking for, but
Okay.
just for your own entertainment, I guess. It's a really funny and smart show. Like, it's very
Sure.
current, it's very like political, and it's sort of satirical, and it's a lot more than it's not a kid's show, and it's a lot more than just a cartoon about a kid who misbehaves.
Right.
You know?
Right. Well, Bart's definitely not the star of that show.
No,
I
he's
think
not.
early on he was sort of marketed as a Bart show. Bart was on everything, T-shirts,
Oh
toys,
my gosh,
all that stuff.
Butterfinger commercials.
Yeah, and somewhere along the line, like I really don't think Homer was. Well, let's talk about Simpsons in a minute, because that's on our list. But let's hold that note and just finish up with
Married with
Children real
Married
quick.
with Children.
I don't want to see someone else play Bud Bundy, and I absolutely do not want to see someone else play Al or Peg. I mean, if Christina Applegate will come back, awesome. But if they can't find a way to like let Ed O'Neill, get him on to guest every once in a while, but if they can't, just don't have Al. Kill Al.
I'd agree.
Kill Al, or say that he's been dead for a couple of years or whatever. But I don't want to see someone else be Al Bundy, and I definitely don't want to see anyone else be Peg Bundy. So, Katie Seagal, hope she comes back.
Yeah. I did think it was funny, and what was it, like this, whatever we recently were watching season of Sons of Anarchy, they made a joke about her dyeing her hair, being a red. She was like, "Oh, I'd never be a redhead."
Yeah.
Like she was like disgusted by it.
Yeah. All right, so let's talk Simpsons since we started that topic. I wanted to say, so we were talking about Bart being sort of, I think early on was sort of, the show was sort of a Bart show. And I don't think Homer was ever really intended to be the hero or the star of that show, but it's absolutely the Homer show now.
Yeah. I think that maybe 10, 15 years ago, it's when the gradual shift became that way.
And that's when a lot of people sort of say the show's been over, since then. Which is interesting. There's definitely had quite a few years of rough writing, I think, on that show, where it was just sort of like rehashing. And I think now last season, I loved last season, and we've talked about this before. I thought last season was sort of, and maybe a little bit the season before that, was sort of the return of smarter writing and more clever jokes, but also returning to its roots and sort of understanding what the show originally was. And I think it's gotten funny again. I think it's gotten heartfelt again. And that's the thing I've always loved about The Simpsons, especially going back to like starting with like the second season, especially even the very first episode, which was a Christmas episode. There are moments on that show that just like make the hairs on my neck stand up. You know, they just like make me feel like love. You know, when going back when they tell the story about how Homer and Marge fell in love and she taught him French, you know, and he puts the corsage and fixes her, you know, and he tells her, I'm afraid to hug you because I'll never want to let you go. I'm like, ooh, and I think that's one of the things I love about that show is that a lot of times it's like fun and goofy and over the top, and they have a lot of guest stars, or you know, they've had a lot of really great voice talent on that show.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, the number one reason why I love The Simpsons is they find a way to work heart into the show. And I think last season, and then like I said a little bit before that, the season before that, they've recaptured that love again. And I think a really good moment that was just a split second last season was them addressing Edna Krabappel at the end of an episode.
Oh yeah.
And Ned just sort of, I'm gonna miss that laugh. I was like, they did it so like they did it very, very subtly. They'd already sort of said goodbye in the chalkboard sequence earlier in the year, but they very subtly kind of worked this thing, and they showed her earlier in the episode, and they sort of worked that storyline in, and then they kind of finished the episode with just one last thank you. And I thought that was really great. Yeah. So I'm really looking forward to this season, to seeing what they're going to do. They've been referencing themselves a lot over the last year and a half or 2 years, which I also think is really funny. I like self-referential humor, and I like that they remember. The Simpsons never really forget what happened on the show 20 years ago. You know, like you'll see a character walk by in the background that you haven't seen in forever. And I like that they're referencing those things, but they have this year, I'm proclaiming this TV season the year of the crossovers. That's what this TV season is all about. Not just Simpsons. This is the year of the crossovers. So the Simpsons have 3 crossovers planned right now for this season. So they're crossing over Family Guy. Pretty much everybody knows they're crossing over Family Guy, which is awesome. Let's talk about that first. How do you feel about that?
I've never been a big Family Guy fan. Like I'll watch it if it's on, but I don't make it a part of my regular TV viewing experience. To me, I think the way that South Park skewered it some time ago, I think was hilarious. Yeah. That it's just a series of pop culture references and pop culture icons, and that's about it. And like some pop culture icon in some goofy scene, and that's it. And that's kind of what the show is. I'm like, eh.
Well, how do you feel about that crossing over into The Simpsons?
I'll definitely be watching it just to see how it goes, because it might happen. And also I know that there was also some kind of, I wouldn't say bad blood, but maybe some sort of resentment between Seth MacFarlane and Matt Groening.
Well, he made a knockoff of The Simpsons.
Exactly, yeah. Because the Simpsons made a dig at them during one of their Halloween episodes, and Seth MacFarlane took it kind of personally, and so there was kind of like this little rivalry and tension going back and forth between the two, and they've kind of worked it out. Yeah. So I'll definitely watch that episode for sure, and there's one other crossover episode in particular that I'm very, very.
We'll get that in a second. We'll get that in a second.
I'll wait.
All right. So your take on Family Guy and The Simpsons?
I do think that it is interesting, given the backlog that they've had, that they are doing a crossover, and I think that it does show, sort of a olive branch. I don't know which side it's coming from, or if it's mutual, but I think it could be really interesting. I definitely enjoy The Simpsons more. Yeah. But we have gotten enjoyment out of Family Guy too. I don't think it's necessarily. I don't think it's a terrible show or anything. I don't think it's as good as The Simpsons. But
sure. I'll tell you what I don't want to see, and they've sort of like advertised this, is the fight between Homer and Peter, and this idea that like the Pawtucket Patriot Ale is just a knockoff of Duff. It's like they just relabeled it. It's like
Okay.
they get in this big fight, and I've seen like stills of them fighting and marks on them and stuff. I don't want to see a 10-minute fight between Homer and Peter, a la Peter and the Chicken. That's played out. We've seen the chicken fight over and over and over and over again, and that's done. So now I don't want to see it just replaced with Homer Simpson. I really hope that there's something to this. Do we know, is it an hour long, or is it just a half hour?
I think it's half an hour.
No, it's not taking each of their spaces together.
Oh, no. I think it's just. I think it's Family Guy coming into The Simpsons.
So Simpsons is going to happen, and then the Family Guy episode, which is essentially Family Guy, or is it a Simpsons episode that the Family Guy are on?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah,
Okay.
Simpsons episode, but the Family Guy.
So there may be a Family Guy episode right after.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Well, let's talk about the other crossover, which I'm guessing this is the one you're more excited about. Is Bender from Futurama is going to come back in time to visit the Simpsons?
Yes.
Ooh.
And I assume the rest of the Planet Express crew will be not far behind. I'm hoping.
I think so. I haven't read up too much on it.
Because you know spoilers.
It's as far as I know, it's just a Futurama crossover. So I don't know whether Bender is coming to visit again, or whether the full cast is coming.
Well, I know what the plot line is. Do you want to know the plot line?
Sure, go ahead.
The plot line is Bender goes back in time to kill Bart Simpson to prevent him from doing something that alters the future.
Okay.
So we know that Bender's coming back in time to the Simpsons. So I'm really intrigued by this. Now I'm not the biggest Futurama fan. You're much bigger than I am. I haven't even seen the end of the show. I saw some of those movies that they did, and then when it came back, I have not had a chance to watch any of the episodes. So they're on Netflix, though, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can watch pretty much the whole series is on Netflix.
Yeah, I should catch up because it's too bad because I kind of like the way the show ended before.
A lot of people did.
Yeah, so I've been a little hesitant anyways to watch it. But do you think I need to watch the rest of the Futurama seasons before I see the Simpsons episode?
I don't think so. I think it's going to be like its own standalone thing.
Yeah.
I will say though that for the people who did see the end of Futurama, the way especially that Comedy Central, what they aired immediately after the finale made it brilliant.
Oh, okay.
So I won't say much. I won't say anything other than that until when you get caught up at the very end. I'll tell you what happens afterwards.
Oh, okay. That's not available to watch anymore.
No, it's available to watch. It's just the end of the very last episode of Futurama.
Don't give anything away.
Yeah, I don't want to give anything away. I couldn't really tell you.
All right, that's fine. That's fine. Are you excited for You're not a big Futurama person, just in general.
I mean, I like it.
Yeah. I had a hard time getting you to watch it.
Yeah, but once I started, I enjoyed it.
Oh, yeah.
Find it funny.
Is that something that appeals to you, a crossover, like bringing Futurama back to...
I don't know.
As a casual Simpsons and Futurama watcher.
Futurama watcher. It could be fun. I'm not like...
You're not excited about it?
No. I'm not flipping out or anything.
Yeah. I'll be honest, I'm more excited about the third crossover.
That one I'm not sure of. I didn't know that there was a third crossover. So
It's a crossover in a fairly loose way. The Simpsons Halloween special is going to have a crossover this year. They're going to cross over with the Tracy Ullman versions of The Simpsons.
Oh yeah.
And so they're doing the old animation style, and apparently the actors
really
have
funny.
gotten back into the old voices that they used to do.
Oh, that's funny.
Wow.
So yeah, I'm really, really excited to see the old ugly Simpsons like interacting with the nice, the nice high
very
def
well
version.
drawn. Yeah.
If a slide aside, I do say that I think I like the old Simpsons animated, the hand-drawn animation versus the digital.
But not the Tracy Ullman version.
No, not the Tracy Ullman
Those
version.
were
No.
ugly
Yeah,
characters.
those were bad. No, those were bad.
Yeah. So we're gonna get that crossover at Halloween. So
Particularly poorly drawn.
I was really excited about the Futurama crossover when it was supposed to air last year, and then they pushed it back to this year, and they kind of were like, well, we don't know exactly when it's going to air. It'll be somewhere in the first maybe 6 episodes. It'll be in the first half of the season for sure. And I felt like that was sort of like they were kind of ambivalent about it, and it made me less excited about the Futurama episode for some reason. They're really excited about this Family Guy thing, and I think it's because they can sell that. It's easy to we're going to make a bunch of money off of this. We'll sell a DVD that's just this episode probably. So I don't know. Maybe that's the reason, but I'm also like a little piece of me is like they pushed it back. Maybe it's not very good. It wasn't worth having it as the finale.
They're just spending a lot of time making it really good, Wes.
Well, the finale from The Simpsons was not a very good finale. Not for a finale specifically, which was Milhouse and Bart episode. Milhouse episodes don't really do anything for me. How do you feel about Milhouse? I mean, it was like, did you see? It was like him.
I haven't really paid attention to The Simpsons in at least half a decade.
You should get back.
So I know last season you were telling me about it. Like the only episodes that I would watch would be the Treehouse of Horror episodes. Mm-hmm. But even this last season was just so blah.
But you're gonna watch it this year, aren't you?
I'm definitely watching this year. Because that's always the episodes that I watch. But I think I watched maybe like a couple episodes, but it wasn't up to what I thought. Like there's a couple gags that I laugh at, but it doesn't have the charm that the old episodes have. And it's trying to shake off the dust of nostalgia to understand how this new team of writers and producers make a show.
I think they are shaking the dust off of nostalgia. I think you're right. Like they're sort of like, hey, remember us? Absolutely. But I think it works. I think it's working really well. There's one more Simpsons thing that I want to sort of talk about and sort of tease. I think in the premiere episode, a longtime character is going to die.
Oh yeah, Oh yeah.
But we don't know who it is.
I haven't said yet.
Do you know?
No, because like didn't they say it was someone that won? It was an award.
That was last year. That was Edna that died last year.
Okay.
That was last year's death, and that was Marsha Wallace won the Emmy.
Okay.
So it was because it was somebody who wasn't part of the cast. And I mean, I'm assuming because they've already said that Edna Krabappel's dead. So
yeah, having
her die again now, it wouldn't be her.
I thought there was someone else that they were going to kill off at this season.
They are now. They are. They have said that they're killing someone off in the I think the first episode this season.
Okay, yeah.
But it's not the thing from last year. That was during last season, and Edna Krabappel died. So the question is, who's it going to be this season? And I have a guess, but I think.
I had a guess, but it was you said it was someone that.
Did you say Maggie? That's pretty dark.
Yikes! Because the person that they were killing off, they said won an award, won an Emmy.
An Emmy, and that was Edna. That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Is I think that was Marsha Wallace.
Okay.
So I don't think that hint applies to this.
I thought it did.
Okay, let's assume it did.
Okay, assuming it did. My guess was that it is going to be Sideshow Bob.
He won an Emmy for The Simpsons?
Yeah. Kelsey Grammer won an Emmy for that.
That could be. That is an interesting guess. I was going to guess Grandpa Simpson.
Oh.
I think it's time. I think they've had 26 years with Grandpa. I think, and I could see how that voice could be. I mean, they've had him on the show less and less and less as the show's gone on. Mm-hmm. I kind of wonder if The Simpsons are going to deal with the death of Grandpa this season. How meaningful would this show be? How meaningful would that episode be if they kill off Grandpa Simpson?
Could be.
What do you think?
I don't know. I was totally joking about Maggie.
Yeah,
I said that because it's like obvious that
we know it's not Maggie because
Maggie.
we've seen her in the future. One of the many, many different futures that they have.
Right.
You sicko.
Come on. I know they're not going to kill her. I don't know, man. I'm trying to think who else is either like old or would be in danger.
It's funny, they said, the producer said this really cryptic thing. He was like, if you think you already know who it is, you probably do. And it's like, what? What does that mean?
Well, the same thing when they.
Because I think it's Grandpa.
It was the same thing when they did like the Who Shot Mr. Burns thing, because like there was a contest tied to it, and they said it's the person you least suspect, and it was the person everyone least expect.
Yeah. Except that in the lead up to that episode, remember they did like a special episode that was like a recap, and it was like, it could be this person, this is the motive for this person, and then they said who it was basically in the episode. It was like, or it could be this person, and I was like, oh, it could be that person, and then it was. We're not saying it's a really old spoiler, but for some reason we've decided not to say it. I don't know what happened just now, but
it could possibly be one of Marge's sisters.
Oh, that's an interesting idea.
Yeah, That would probably be one of my second guesses.
They're, they both smoke a lot.
Yeah.
How's it going, Walt?
I can't think. I wouldn't want it to be somebody too ancillary. Like, I wouldn't want it to be like Skinner's mom.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Right,
she's not on the
yeah,
show
she's-
enough. She doesn't really have an impact on the show in the same way the other characters do.
Where you
I
going?
want it to
Stay
be.
here.
If it could, and it absolutely could be Edna. It could be going back and finding out what happened to her.
Yeah.
Because they didn't say what it was. They just said, she's dead, basically.
We're gonna miss
I'm
her.
gonna miss that laugh, and that was it. So they could go and explain that, but I don't know. I'm excited to find out, though. I think it's the premiere. We'll have to double check and find it for sure. All right, let's move on to let's give a little break in between TV and movies. I want to talk about a game that's out. It just came out. It's really fun. If you like Cards Against Humanity, you should check out this game. It's called Mobscenity. We have it here. It's a really simple card game, and basically, if I can open it. By the way, if you get it, my name's on one of the cards.
Show the box.
Show the box. Oh, there's light. There's light.
There's glare.
There we go.
There you go.
Obscenity. Okay. So basically, all the cards have a word on them. So, like, this word is hard. I'm not going to pick that word. Let's pick dragon. This is the John Patrick Destroyer of Worlds card. So you might have hard, and you might have a whole bunch of cards in your hand. And so each round, kind of like Cards Against Humanity, there's a judge that picks a card instead of picking a black card or reading that out. They pick two cards from their hand, and they pick Dragon Hard, and they say Dragon Hard or Hard Dragon. And then everybody else has a piece of paper, and they write down the definition of what Dragon Hard is or Hard Dragon is, right? And they fold it up and they put it in a hat, and everybody puts their things in. And then one by one, you mix them up, and each person reads the definition. So you're reading someone else's definition out loud, so the judge doesn't know whose it is. And then the judge decides which definition is the correct definition for Hard Dragon. Not a game for youngsters. This game is sort of designed, and the cards are sort of written to be filthy for
Obscene.
Obscene, with hence the name Obscenity. My card is Push, so hopefully you'll find my card in there. There's also an expansion pack that's a Dirty Words pack, and it's got
Has specific words that are actually specifically dirty.
I mean, like, one of them's turd, so it's not that dirty,
Right,
but they definitely make sure that what you're gonna put down is going to be dirty. So you should definitely, if you're of age, you should definitely check out this game. We'll post the link in the description on YouTube. We'll also do it on the Pinterest board. And
if anybody's actually listening.
support is a little company out of Bellevue, Washington. The people are super, super nice. They've responded to me when I've sent the messages. They actually supported us for our tabletop day in May. And they sent us copies. The game was not out, obviously, because it just came out. So they sent us multiple prototypes of the game and just said, keep them. I said, do you want me to send these back? And they said, no, keep them. And so we were able to give them out as prizes as well. So
yeah, and they've had some issues in production, and they've been really good about being responsive to people.
Upfront about it. Yeah, they say, hey, look, this is what's going on. This is exactly what's happening. This is where we're at. This is when we expect things. And as soon as they got these, a day later, I got my cards.
Yeah, and they were like, because it's late, here's what we're gonna do for you. Like, they handled it very well, because I know it's a lot of
people to deal with.
Kickstarter things in general.
Yeah.
I mean, we've sponsored other things that just don't happen.
I sponsored one thing that took like a year and a half for it to come out.
Yeah, well,
so it was supposed to be out like within months.
We didn't sponsor, but we were a part of another project that's been 2 years in the making now, and is still not even close to being coming out yet.
Yep.
And
well, we definitely. I've I backed one that was canceled altogether. I mean,
Yeah,
it happens. So these guys are great. They actually are also on Twitter. We'll put the Twitter link down there too. I believe they're just at Mobscenity, but I'm not 100% sure. It could be their game company name, but we'll make sure we put that info in the Pinterest board or something.
Really fun though. Really super fun.
It's a really, really fun game. Everybody that we have played it with really, really likes the game. So they also have a blank card pack, just like Cards Against Humanity, so you can add your own words. But since we don't know all the words yet, we've been hesitant to write any of our names.
I also think, though, it's really funny that when we play together, as happens with a lot of things in our life, we end up writing very similar.
You're right.
Like,
we have written the same definition before.
The same definition. Like, and it's like you have no idea. Like, you're just coming up with something off the top of your head, but because we're just so like-minded and do all the same things together, it just happens that way.
I'll tell you
it's funny.
I'll tell you one of the word combinations that we did on Tabletop Day, and you guys can either in the comments below or send us an email, nolagtillbrooklyn@gmail.com, and let us know your definition for clam milk.
Oh, God.
Clam milk. So enjoy that one, everyone. Okay, let's move on from obscenity. Oh, you want to say one more thing?
I'm just going to say that if you're putting a definition for that, like, specify that that's what you're doing. Don't just put, like, dirty...
Yeah, don't just send us obscene emails.
You know, right. I just don't want our comments to be, like, filled with obscene things and people are like, what is going on here? This is so weird.
Oh, I have a weird, like, out-of-place television show thing on our list of things here. Let's just real quick, I'll just mention this. One, our TV show podcast that we had last episode, I talked about shows that I was excited for their return, and there was one that was so far out that I didn't really think about it, and it doesn't come out till November 9th, and that's the final season of The Newsroom.
Oh, so good. That show's so good.
I love The Newsroom. I think it's one of the best written shows on television. Aaron Sorkin, I think, is a genius. And I owe Chris my thanks for turning me on to Aaron Sorkin and really understanding like who he is as a writer. So, yeah. So that's all I wanted to say is Newsroom comes back November 9th. Super, super excited.
Watch it. It's so good.
Extremely sad that they're only doing 3 seasons. I don't know whose fault that is, but whoever's fault it is.
I think that's Sorkin's fault.
I'm upset with you then. You know, I mean, just... it's maybe as far as narrative shows, not documentary or reality or whatever. It may be I think the most important story that's being told on television right now.
Walt,
I love.
Come here, buddy.
I love Game of Thrones and
Come here.
Chicago Fire or whatever. But I think The Newsroom tackles important issues that we need to be talking about in our country. And I see on Facebook, this thing pops up every once in a while on my timeline where it's like the most, honest 3 minutes of television ever, and it's like the speech that he gives to the girl that's like, what makes America so great? And he's like, it's not. And that's from the opening. That's the very
first episode.
It's the first scene of the first episode of The Newsroom. So if you haven't watched The Newsroom, you really ought to. I don't know if it's available streaming, but if not, go buy it. I think it's absolutely a worthy show. And
if it's streaming, it'll be on Amazon because it's an HBO show.
Oh, that's true. Jeff Daniels is fantastic on that show. Just from the beginning of an episode to the end of the episode, he's just always on point, and his performance is driven, just really driven every moment. So
I think one thing that I really like about, I guess it would be about the writing of this show, is that the show often covers things that are not a part of my life. Like, I don't pay attention to some of these things in the news, and it's it's just not like it's not at the forefront of who I am.
Mm-hmm.
But the way that they write the show is so interesting and so smart, but not
condescending.
Yeah, I understand it. Like, I get it, and I really like that about it. Like, there are shows, like, you watch what's that one? It's like a political one with the guy, and he like talks to the camera.
The Daily Show?
No.
House of Cards.
Oh, House of Cards.
Thank you.
All I could think of was like the Daily Show. It's a political show where the guy talks at the camera. Like,
No, I mean like it's a narrative show where the character talks through the camera.
I love House of Cards.
I don't get it. I don't get that show. Like, it just goes over my head.
You don't understand the things that they're saying, the vocabulary.
Yeah, I don't. And with the newsroom, I understand what's going on, and I'm very intrigued by it, and I still feel like I'm learning something.
And it makes you, like, pay attention to those issues outside of the show and, like, form your own opinions. That's the neat thing about Aaron Sorkin is, like, he's such a persuasive writer. Like, when you listen to the things his characters say, you're like, I believe what they're saying. And then somebody else has a counter opinion. You're like, I believe what they're saying. Like, he's just such a convincing writer. And he sort of, in a lot of ways, he definitely leans one direction. He's definitely a very liberal guy. He definitely leans one direction. But it sort of forces you to, like, learn enough to make your own opinion. And that's one of the brilliant things about a show like The Newsroom or like The West Wing, where it was really about the lives of these people, but they talked about issues that were going on at the time and surprisingly are still relevant today. And it sort of forces you to, like, weigh in emotionally and logically, how do I feel about this type of issue? So, Newsroom, watch it.
Yeah, great
Do
show.
it.
Great show.
You watch Newsroom then?
I've only seen the first episode, and
it's
I know it's one of those shows that I really really want to pick up on it. So
it's really
I'll have to dive head first into it.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
You'll probably binge watch it.
There's a little bit of a shift though in between the first season and the second season, whereas the first season is really about, not what it's about, but sort of the mode of the show is that something's happening at the beginning of the episode and you don't know what the story is, and then you find out what the story is and they put the date up, like it's the BP oil spill or whatever like that, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, I get it now I remember this when this happened several years ago.
Right.
And they move sort of from that format to a fictional story in the second season, and the third season I think is the fallout from everything that happened with that fictional story in the second season. But they still work in real, like, Occupy Wall Street or like an election.
Things that an actual news station would be talking or would have been talking about.
They still work those things in.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, Newsroom, I love it.
It's an interesting commentary on how news is handled in general.
And how it should be handled.
Right.
Absolutely. And Jon Stewart, it's funny because if you watch Daily Show, right?
Yeah.
You're pretty religious with the Daily Show. The things that Jon Stewart is saying week after week after week about, like, Fox News and CNN and MSNBC, those things, that's what they're talking about on the Newsroom, but they're talking about it in a way, they're talking about it in sort of a fictional way that lets you invest in characters, and it's very, like, it's subtly saying the exact same things and putting in your head the same things that Jon Stewart's saying about this is wrong, this is what's wrong with journalism.
Right.
And as like, much as Jon Stewart wants to say he's not a journalist, like, the things he's saying on that show are A, more factually correct than most journalists on TV, and B, he's trying to do the right thing, which is more, to me, more enterprising of a journalist than anybody on Fox News or CNN. Although I do like CNN a little bit. And
the thing about the humor of that show is that he's making fun of the absurdity of how news is handled in our country and how,
Yeah, Jon Stewart sort of is like about the absurdity. I think the Newsroom is sort of about how dangerous it is.
Right, absolutely.
That's sort of the difference, I think.
Yeah, it's a little more of a serious note to that show. But very good.
Yeah.
Excellent show.
All right.
And still some humor.
Well, yeah. Oh, yeah, it's funny. And love story.
Yeah,
there's love stories in it.
Absolutely.
So we'll jump back off of TV again and jump back into movies. So the first thing I want to talk about is there's this thing, The Maze Runner opened this weekend. And they're doing this new thing only in select theaters. I think there's like 7 theaters in the country that's doing this or something. And it's called the Barco Experience or the Barco Escape. Barco is a company that makes a digital projector, really, really powerful digital projectors. You work at Microsoft, so if you've ever been in one of the big conference rooms with those big, massive...
I have not.
Oh, yeah.
No.
They're like these huge, like, projectors bigger than our table.
That was almost like saying, you work at Right, you work at Microsoft. You know Bill Gates, right?
Well, yeah, it's right down the hall. But
There's,
yeah,
I mean, how many buildings and how many conference rooms? At
Exactly.
Microsoft?
Yeah.
You've probably been in a couple.
I've been in a couple, but they're like the regular size
The little
projectors.
ones.
So yeah,
they have some like in like the main what's that main building where people park in the garage and there's
the executive briefing center.
Yeah. There's projectors larger than this table.
I've seen a couple of those projectors at like when I went to the Emerald City Comic Con. They had projectors that would show the con information, that kind of thing.
They're probably Barco.
Yeah, they're huge.
So they're doing this thing in some theaters. They're doing it in LA, and they've put up screens to the sides of the main screen, and some movies are filmed this way. Sometimes it's sports stuff, and I think there's sort of an eye of maybe moving some other feature films this direction. But with Maze Runner, they went back and digitally recreated stuff specifically for these side screens. Mm-hmm. So the idea is you're looking at people running through the maze this way, and you've got maze whipping by you on this side, so it makes you feel completely immersed.
That's
and
kind of cool.
It's only certain scenes, unfortunately. Probably one, it's it's 3 times the amount of power that you're sucking out of that theater, and it's
Yeah, and if you didn't film it that way to begin with,
more cameras on set and more work for the editors and all that stuff. But and when you change camera angles too, that also is going to change what happens on the sides of the screen. So that's also an issue. But is that Warner Brothers? Who does? Do you know who does Maze Runner? So basically, since they didn't have the footage for the sides, they went back and digitally recreated the environment for those side screens, which is pretty cool. It sounds like it's not crazy expensive, not any more expensive than going to like a AMC Prime, or you're probably going to spend somewhere between $15 and $20 per ticket, which is expensive for a ticket, I guess, for most people. But like in LA, that's what you're going to spend.
That's average. That's
so if you get a chance to check out the Maze Runner in the Barco Experience or Barco Escape, please let us know what it's like, because I'm really curious. I was actually contemplating asking you guys if you wanted to go to it, but I didn't really want to spend. I have Movie Pass, so it's like I don't really want to spend the money on the thing if I'm already.
You don't know how to look this up.
Don't worry about it.
Page.
Here, you guys talk amongst yourselves.
I just put a cookie in my mouth.
Well, I mean, is that something that interests you? Is like having a theater experience like that something that you think is?
I think it's almost kind of like high frame rate. It's in 3D. It's the studio's trying to find a way to get people back into the theaters, or to come to theaters more often with raising ticket prices and with home video coming out so quickly after a release.
Yeah.
And sometimes some of them just feel really gimmicky. 3D works for very, very select movies.
Yeah.
And yet it's foisted upon a lot of them, and a lot of times it just doesn't work.
Well, do you know why 3D is so big right now? Why all the studios back 3D so heavily? Is because it's very difficult to pirate a 3D film. So if studios had their way, it would all be in 3D, I think. Theater. And yeah, I mean, you shoot that with a camera and try and sell it in China. I mean, it's going to be blurry.
Yeah.
So I think if studios had their way, all the movies would release only in 3D to prevent people from being able to pirate the films. And it's helped a little bit, but it hasn't. I mean, there's still non-3D versions of the movies still coming out. So.
And I think too that the fact that they come out so quickly afterwards, I hope is helping piracy as well. It's like you're not gonna have to wait 6 months from the theater date to watch it at home anyway.
Right.
So at least domestically, that may be helping. As far as other countries are concerned, that's a whole different.
A whole
different thing.
By the way, 20th Century Fox is the Maze Runner, but yeah, it's interesting I think most people probably kind of feel that way about like kind of gimmicks like 3D. I mean,
and
I like 3D for the gimmick,
if it's an appropriate film for it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to watch Bridges of Madison County in 3D, but
if they do something with it, because like a lot of the movies that are in 3D, even action movies, it doesn't really contribute to it, and they don't do anything interesting with it. Like years ago, we went and saw Bolt. That CG movie, and like they didn't do anything with it. It was the 3D was absolutely useless in it, and so if you have a family that has 2-3 kids and you all go out for family night and you see a Disney movie that's in 3D, you're spending another $15 on something that didn't enhance the experience at all.
Let me play devil's advocate, because I am a 3D. I love 3D, and if a movie's available in 3D, I'll try to see it in 3D typically, unless it's just like Ninja Turtles. I didn't see in 3D because I didn't care about the movie in the first place. So, but I'll tell you why I think 3D works for even a movie like Bolt. There are some filmmakers who aren't as good as other filmmakers. And this is Tim Burton. Did he direct Nightmare Before Christmas? Or was he just producing that?
I think he directed it.
All right, I want to use that as an example.
He produced it for sure.
Nightmare Before Christmas is a really great example of a non-3D movie that was converted, and the difference between different types of directors. Okay, so I've seen Nightmare Before Christmas a million times.
Plenty of times, yeah.
Right? And then I saw it in 3D, and it was like I was watching Nightmare Before Christmas for the first time. And it wasn't intended to be in 3D. It's something that was way after its release, like 10 years after its release. So I started asking myself, what is it about the 3D experience? Nothing popped out at me on screen.
He did not direct it. It was directed by Henry Selick.
Okay, so Henry Selick.
Tim Burton was one of the writers.
So I'm gonna extol the virtues of Henry Selick for a minute here. I think I figured out why Nightmare Before Christmas worked so well being converted to 3D, and that's it created so much depth. And this is the virtue of Henry Selick and why he was a great director for that. He put things in the foreground and the background that I never noticed before. And that's kind of what you want to do, is you want to create depth, and you want to create things that maybe sometimes people don't notice, maybe sometimes people do. You don't ever want to direct people's eyes away from the important things in the film, which never happened when I watched it before. But a new world completely opened up to me, and I appreciated the work that they put into that film, because they put so much stuff going on in the foreground and so much stuff going on in the background that was maybe out of focus, but it was new to me. It was new, and it was shiny, and it was beautiful. And that's a really, truly great director. What I think 3D can do, and does for even a movie like Bolt that doesn't really feel like there's that much going on, is I think it can make mediocre directors better. It forces them, when they know that this is going to be in 3D and that there needs to be depth, it forces them to do things in a way and think a little bit more creatively that are things that maybe you don't notice because they're not central to the action or the plot, but they're things that sort of force them to think a little bit more in depth, so to speak, no pun intended. So I think that's sort of the virtue of having 3D for films that maybe don't necessarily need it exactly. It's better when you have an Avengers in 3D, though. You know what I mean? Like Captain America, better in 3D, I think. Does it have to be in 3D? Probably not. More fun in 3D? Probably. I don't know.
That's interesting, because I do get enjoyment out of some 3D films, and I do feel like some of them, it's utilized very well, and the team going into it has really put some thought into the fact that it is going to be in 3D and that they're going to, make it work for 3D, not necessarily with gimmicks, but just like you're saying, like putting things in the foreground and the background and giving it some depth. I
don't like the gimmicky 3D as much. Like when they're shooting things at the screen, I don't like that as much. To be honest. But go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to.
No. I just, the thing is that for me, if I am gonna go see a 3D movie, I want it to be 3D for a reason, because I always get a headache.
Oh, sure.
I have a friend who does that too.
It's bad for you.
Yeah.
It's bad for your brain.
So bad. It's bad for your brain. It always, because I wear glasses, it's always uncomfortable in my head.
Get the
there's
clip-ons.
never like a way to situate them properly, and I end up with like these pushed all the way back, and my eyelashes are like smacking against the
You have that problem with our home 3D glasses?
Not so much, but definitely when we go to the theater.
Yeah, our home ones are nicer.
Yeah.
Although they give me indentations.
But so it's like if I'm gonna go see a 3D movie, it better be worth it.
Yeah, that's me. I'm gonna review it, and if they tell me like, yeah, go ahead and pay for the 3D or not.
Sure.
Yeah.
But it's not something I'm usually going to go out of my way of. Usually, because I'll be a cheap bastard and just go for the regular 2D feature.
Interestingly, though, you go to IMAX quite a bit. If IMAX,
Not so much anymore. No.
What's the last movie you saw on IMAX?
Last one Guardians of the Galaxy.
Okay,
Wow.
So that was pretty recent.
Yeah.
Just like a month ago.
Yeah, a couple months ago.
August.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It just seems like that way.
Yeah, it feels like it's been out forever. Now, and I see. I'm not a big IMAX guy. I actually don't. I appreciate the sound system, but I don't think the screen is worth it. There's plenty of screens that are essentially the same size as what you get out of an IMAX. If it's an IMAX movie, if it's shot in IMAX, different story. You know, Dark Knight Rises in IMAX is really neat. I wish more of the movie would have been shot that way. It would have been felt more. Not Dark Knight Rises, The Dark Knight. I wish more of the movie had been shot that way. If more of the movie was shot that way, I would have been fine with it. Mm-hmm. You live in Seattle, so you have the Cinerama, which I think is maybe the best theater I've ever been to in my life. The screen size at the Cinerama is roughly the same size of what's projected for a regular feature film at the IMAX. So you could spend the money on IMAX, but get essentially get the same amount of screen at the Cinerama. So it's like the size is because it's shot at like 2.35 ratio to 1, you know?
Yeah.
So
the screen is IMAX is taller, but it's not necessarily any wider than.
So if you go see Star Trek on an IMAX screen, you're spending money on IMAX when you could be seeing it at Cinerama, or for us, we have an ETX.
Wow.
Hey, buddy.
Hey.
You could be seeing it in an ETX theater here in California and get a better quality out of it. You know, I think. So I don't know. I'm not big on IMAX, but I like 3D.
Neither as well.
Well, going back to the whole like the thing, it's just a way of studios kind of experimenting with new formats to get people into the theaters. So whether or not it's going to be worth the extra money, I think consumers are a lot more savvy about it, and think a lot of them are going to see it as just it's going to be the same thing as 3D, where they see it as an excuse for studios to jack up the price of tickets.
Do you think it would be worth it if it stuck around?
Again, if it's like 3D and they do something with it,
so
but I don't know that. I think consumers are kind of tightening their wallets, and like a lot of things, it'll be just like in like the 50s and 60s with things like smell-o-vision, that they'll see past it as something that doesn't really add to the experience. I mean, it might be kind of neat in some ways, but it's not something that I think a lot of people are going to know if are going to seek out.
Okay, so that's an interesting question. An interesting point. I'm not sure I really agree with that, in the sense that the history of film has been that we continue to innovate. I mean, if you go back and you look at old film, especially, pre-sound, I mean, so sound is an advancement in film that people were like,
that's stupid. It's going to be...
Some people did, absolutely.
Yeah.
Studios thought that was a terrible idea. Then they went from 4:3 to a wider field of view. Then you have Cinerama or Panavision, which was an advancement, and now Panavision essentially has stuck around.
Color.
What's that?
Color.
Yes, color is a really good example. The Fox is the first movie studio to release a Panavision film, and they're doing this Barco experience thing. So you could sort of argue that this is maybe an attempt at an advancement in how we view film, and that it's not just necessarily a gimmick, but I absolutely think they want to make money. Don't get me wrong, but could this possibly be a true advancement for film?
Yeah, it's some sort of like a pilot program to see if it sticks around.
Yeah.
Because they've tried some things and some things didn't work out.
Sure.
So it's not necessarily. I'm not saying that it's a bad thing. It's going to be up to the consumer whether or not people go for it. I don't know. Maybe it might. Maybe it won't.
Yeah.
But I think people would go for it as long. What they don't want is an impact on ticket prices. I think that's going to be the big detrimental thing.
But that's always gonna happen with a new advancement in almost any industry, but especially in film. That's always going to happen. Like, we have this new thing that we're trying to do that we think will enhance the experience for you. I guess the question is, do you buy the idea that they're trying to enhance the experience for the audience to keep them coming to the theater, or do you think they're just trying to get money from people that are already going to the theater?
Mm-hmm.
Because I think if it's just a gimmick, people will figure that out and they'll just stop coming to the theater. But with all the 3D movies that are out right now,
Hey, stay.
Ticket sales this year are pretty good.
Yeah.
For the first quarter, they were absolutely better than the previous year's first quarter. So
Then the summer came around.
No, but I mean, Guardians of the Galaxy, is over over 300 million in the US alone, right?
Yeah.
So,
Stay.
The rest of the summer, though, not so much. It's been.
We didn't have like huge releases this year. We've got a lot of huge releases coming next year. So, we have Star Wars next year, right? We have Avengers next year. We have Batman, Superman next year, and probably a bunch of things I'm not thinking about right now. But I mean, we have more than just Avengers. Oh yeah, that one. I mean, we should have multiple Marvel movies, at least 2 Marvel movies coming out next year. So we have Ant-Man coming out. So, next year will probably be an even better year ticket sales wise than this year, and there'll be even more 3D films. So, and maybe more Barco experience.
Yeah, maybe.
So
It'll be interesting to see how it unfolds.
Barco experience, not in 3D. It'd be hard to do 3D sites. So
Yeah.
I don't know. It's interesting.
Maybe I would enjoy that more than some 3D films.
Yeah, or it might give you a headache with stuff going by you.
Maybe. Who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows?
We'll see. All right. Let's talk some other movies. Let's talk about... Duane and I saw a movie yesterday. Yesterday?
Yeah,
Just
it was yesterday.
Feels forever ago. We saw Kevin Smith's Tusk. A very Walrus-y movie. And it's actually not a very Walrus-y movie, but it's definitely... Yeah. Right? I mean, I wouldn't say it was very Walrus-y, would you? Even though it's kind of Walrus-y?
What the hell are you talking about?
I think he's trying to go... I think he's going for an inside joke I don't get.
No. At first I want to say it's very Walrus-y because it's sort of... it's got a walrus name, and it's got sort of a walrus plot about walruses, kind of. But it's not about walruses, right? It's about the horror and insanity of a crazy person.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not about walruses, but it's kind of a walrus movie. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Interesting movie. What did you... Do you want to... I'll let you go first.
Well, I've enjoyed Kevin Smith's films. I'm a fan of his since I saw Clerks when I rented it on VHS in early '95, I think. And he's certainly branched out with his previous film Red State, getting away from his kind of slacker comedy roots, and so for him to go into something different is kind of interesting and exciting. And this time around, it's a horror film. But I kind of came away from it that he's doing sort of this comedy and horror at the same time, but they don't quite, the way it's either written or edited together, they don't quite mash together very well. I think some of the jokes some of the intended jokes I don't think came off too well. It was attempted to be funny, but it wasn't ha-ha funny.
A couple were obvious.
Yeah. And there was, so I would say ultimately it's not a bad movie, but it's not one that I could really recommend to my friends to go to see in a theater. I would say it's a rental.
Interesting. I liked it. I think if you are a Kevin Smith fan, I think it's worth seeing in the theater. One, because we discussed before, I think people should support Kevin Smith. I think he's a really interesting writer and a fairly interesting director. I think I like him as a writer more than I like him as a director, but I'm going to go see his movies that he directs, even if he doesn't write them. The other reason is it's a small film, and I think people need to support small films, and I think there's other films out there. I think this is better than some other films that are out there. This is certainly better than Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Oh, absolutely.
So, if you have a choice between this and maybe some other ones, I think this would be a good choice to go see. It's very different. It's certainly weird. It had an adorable cameo in it that I really liked. And then it had a cameo that I had no idea who the actor was that you told me about today. And it absolutely blew my mind. But I'm not going to say who it is so people can find out for themselves. But absolutely blew my mind.
I didn't recognize this actor at all.
Nope.
I had no idea.
No clue. No, I didn't know they were involved in the movie at all. I didn't really watch the credits at the end.
Well, are they they're credited under a different name?
Did you say they were credited under another name?
Yeah. The actor was credited under a different name. Like they have like the picture of the actor and then the name Justin Long and Haley Joel Osment and such. But yeah, this other actor they gave him another name.
Oh, Haley Joel Osment. I'm so happy to see him in movies again. He was in Alphas. No, Alpha House. Is that what's it called? Not
I don't know.
Alphas.
I don't know what
Something
you're talking about.
Beta. I don't know. It's one of these. Alpha House? No, that sounds wrong to me for some reason.
Look it up.
There's a
Look it
show
up.
on Amazon Prime with John Goodman.
Oh, I think it's Alpha House.
Alpha House. He's on Alpha House. He's a small part in that where he's a journalist and he like ends up tagging along and he's kind of adorable and goofy and not very smart. And so I was glad to see him in that. And I was super excited to see him in this movie. I feel like, I know like as far as kid actors go, I know they all like get into some trouble. I know he got like a DUI and whatnot, but I like Haley Joel Osment. I think he's a great actor and I'm glad to see people giving him parts again. He doesn't have the look. I mean, he's like kind of heavy now.
Yeah, he's gained some weight.
But I would like to see him in more movies. I was really excited to see him in that movie. So the movie, how do we describe this movie without spoiling it? Because I'm sure they're like, well, what's the movie about?
Yeah, well, if you want to give like just a plot synopsis.
So Justin Long's character and Justin Long and Haley Joel Osment are podcasters, and they Justin Long is sent to Canada to go and interview a kid who he doesn't get to interview for some reasons. And basically the type of people they like to talk about on their podcast or interview are the people that like you just have to see this because they're weird. And Justin Long finds about this guy who has a room for rent, and it turns into sort of a weird... man... It's sort of a weird stipulation for continuing his life. It involves walruses. So,
Okay.
and it's like if you listen to Kevin Smith podcast, the Smodcast, then you probably already know this, or if you've read articles about it, you know what the plot is. But I don't listen to those things, and I knew a rough idea of what the plot was, and actually what I heard was a little bit different than what actually was executed. So I don't really want to say. I feel like people should just go. If you like Kevin Smith movies, just go, because it does have Kevin Smith humor, for sure. It's not full of it. It's not chock full of it, because it's definitely a horror film.
Yeah, it's definitely not as juvenile.
There are parts of it, but the parts that are juvenile, like there is, you're talking about, like it's not like the slacker comedy.
Yeah, it's not the slackers.
But interestingly, the lead character is sort of a Kevin Smith character.
Yeah.
Justin Long's character is like ripped out of Clerks 2 or something, like he's definitely a slacker character who maybe is a little unlikable, but he's also very witty and very funny, which is classic Kevin Smith. So, there are recognizable Kevin Smith characters, but they're put in this situation that is just so bizarre and messed up. And it's a little bit of a, what kind of horror movie would it be? It's kind of a hostage film. That's I think the best way to sort of describe it is this guy has gone to interview this other person and he's sort of held hostage, and it just gets weird. It's
awesome.
Yeah, I mean, but in a good way. I mean, there are times where I was like, it was maybe a little too long.
Yeah, I think this might work. Yeah, it would definitely work as a shorter film.
15 minutes shorter. I think it was an hour and 45 minutes. I think a good 90 minutes would have been fine for this film, because there were moments where I was like, okay,
like the scene's dragging along. Okay,
Yeah.
let's pick up the pace here.
Yeah, absolutely. But I enjoyed the film. I thought the performances were good. Actually, I thought that Michael Parks in the film was absolutely brilliant. He is a storyteller through and through. This guy is like, he talks and you want to listen to him talk more and more and more and more and more. And that's one of the things that actually I didn't quite get enough of, was him sort of telling stories, because his character is supposed to be a storyteller in the film. And so you hear him talk a lot, but it got to a point where he stopped telling stories, and I wish I would have heard him tell more stories, because I really liked hearing that. And there's a moment where he plays dumb to what's going on in the film, and I have not ever seen a more believable portrayal of that personality or that type of person before, which I believe in the film they refer to as a simpleton. And it's his eyes. His eyes were just like looking into nowhere, but they were looking in the direction that they were supposed to be looking. It was like, that guy, I don't understand why more people don't cast him in films. He was really, really brilliant. That guy could be an Academy Award winning actor if he got real roles. Not that this wasn't a real role. I apologize for that terminology. If he got
roles and things that people
roles that had a higher profile,
right?
Let's put it that way. But yeah, Michael Parks, fantastic in the movie. So we're going to talk really quick about what I'm supposed to do. My movie of the week. I didn't actually pick one. We talked about a few different ones. So I'm going to pick one that I know is available for people to buy and rent, and that's called The Lunchbox, which is an Indian film that came out last year. It was a huge winner in the Indian circuit of films. It's a movie that's to be honest with you, I should know this, but I don't know what type of dialogue is spoken. Like half of it's spoken in, I'll say Indian for lack of a better term. I know there's a whole bunch of different languages spoken in India, so I know that's not correct. Don't crucify me over this. Half of it's also spoken in English, so it's half English and half subtitled. So it kind of goes back and forth a little bit. And basically it tells the story of this woman who's looking to connect with her husband, and she makes him a lunch every day, and she packages it up. And in India they have these messengers that come and pick up lunch boxes, and they take them on a train across the city or wherever, or into the next city over, and then they take them off the train, and then they get on their bikes and they go and they deliver all the lunch boxes to all these different places. And it's like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of lunch boxes get delivered this way.
And it's like this thing that's like, it's been studied and in real life. Like, it's not not just for the sake of this movie, but it's a very intricate system, and there's a lot of talk about how it's, I feel like mathematically, like, shouldn't be possible for them to not make mistakes.
And they say that they're always right. Yeah, they say they're always right.
Like, that's in real life. Like, they don't make mistakes. Like, everybody gets the lunchbox they're supposed to get, and
it shouldn't work that way.
Yeah.
And the people that play the delivery people, I can't remember what they're called off the top of my head, but the people that play the lunchbox delivery people are actually the real people in real life. They got the real ones to do it. So the lunchbox gets delivered, but it gets delivered to the wrong person. And so when the wife gets the lunchbox back, for the first time ever, all of the food's been eaten. He loved the food. I've connected with my husband. And she asks him when he comes home, how was the lunch? And he's like, whatever. And she doesn't understand it. And through circumstance, she sort of figures out that it's not going to the right person. And the guy who got the lunchbox thinks it's coming from a restaurant, and he figures out it's not coming from the restaurant, and they begin leaving notes for each other in the lunchbox, and they begin this relationship with each other solely... Oh, sorry, I thought it was supposed to be on silent. Stupid alarm!
Oh my goodness.
So they... it is on vibrate. I
think alarms don't work.
Come on, Apple, get with it. Thanks, Obama. So they begin this relationship with each other, and it's a very sweet, very endearing film, and it did so well in India, right? And so it's like, this should be an Academy Award nominee, but when you nominate and I think it would have won Best Foreign Film.
Oh my gosh, it was so good.
I absolutely think it would have won Best Foreign Film. When every foreign country get together, each country gets together, and they have like a committee that decides what film they're going to submit to the Oscars. They chose not to submit this film and submit a different film that wasn't quite as a high profile film, because they thought, well, this is different, so we'll submit this. And there was a huge outcry with critics in India over the lunchbox not being submitted, and I think it was absolutely right on the critics' part. I think that this movie would have been a Best Foreign Film for India. if they had submitted it. It's very good. So The Lunchbox, you really should go see it.
It's a very translatable film, like as far as culturally, like
yeah,
you don't have to understand necessarily the cultural significance of this lunchbox system or whatever. It's just a sort of an interesting thing.
Yeah, or how they live, or none of
it's very it's very much about very real people and how they're dealing with situations in their lives and how that informs this relationship that they start with another, and
how simple connecting with someone can be.
Yeah.
Like, this woman is living with her husband and can't see, like, she's living with him, she has kids with him and can't connect with him, and somehow she connects with somebody through lunches
that she'd never met.
And it made me hungry when I watched it. I was like, I want Indian food.
It is very good, and I think you're absolutely right as far as the award nomination thing. Like, it definitely probably would have won. It's an amazing film.
Yeah.
And I want to stress that it's not really a romantic story. The way that they connect,
sure,
like
it's not The Lake House.
No, it's like they almost.
It's not a tearful melodrama about romance.
It kind of almost goes there, but
well, I mean,
it's
there's
not.
Let's not talk about it.
I don't want to get into it too much, but it's not just.
It's not about whether or not she falls in love with this guy.
Right.
It's about whether these people fill the voids in their lives that they have.
Right.
And it's very sweet, and I really love the film. So go see The Lunchbox.
Very good.
All right, so that was our movie of the week. We talked about Tusk. Let's talk about where we saw, because that's actually on my list. We saw The Lunchbox at AFI Fest, which is coming up again in November. For those of you that don't know what AFI is, if you're a movie lover, get educated. If you're not, AFI is the American Film Institute. It's an organization that teaches people how to make film. They also are a preservation society. If you've ever wondered who creates the canon of film, like what are the 100 best films, AFI has that list, and they've updated it once. They also have multiple other lists, like the best comedies, the best lines, the best heroes and villains. There's like 50 heroes, 50 villains. I believe the best villain might be Hannibal Lecter. I think he edged out Darth Vader. And the greatest hero was Atticus Finch. So kind of cool. Cool organization that really cares about movies and film and celebrating it. And every year in Los Angeles they hold AFI Fest, which is a really unique film festival. If you guys are into film festivals, you really should think about coming out to Los Angeles for AFI Fest.
If you're not into film festivals and you want to try one out, I think this is a good place to start.
It's a good one. Seattle International is also a really good one. Toronto's got a great one.
The thing that about AFI that I think makes it a good festival to start at is the fact that you can do it for free.
And that's what I was going to go with.
Yeah.
That's what I was going to go next. Is that so? All of the tickets are free for this festival. You go online. Every day they release a certain number of tickets for each film, and they oversell the theater, so you may or may not get in. So you do have to go and stand in line ahead of time. But it's people on Twitch. It's okay.
I know. I just want to take it off the table so it's not vibrating.
Okay. So you do have to stand in line, but you do get to see some really, really cool films. And actually, we talked about Holy Motors last episode, and that was also a film that I saw at AFI Fest. So it's interesting because they're unlike other film festivals. They don't take a lot of... I mean, they take submissions, but they don't pick a lot of submissions. Most of the movies are handpicked from going to festivals and screenings all over the world. So, and they have movies from everywhere, and they have... Oftentimes the directors are there. There's some movies. I'll probably mention some movies right now that are going to end up being movies of the week that I'll mention. One right off the top of my head that I can think of is Big Bad Wolves. Both the directors were there for that. Eli Roth was there showing his movie that I think is just about to come out finally to theaters. We saw that last November, so sometimes you get to see movies way ahead of time. They do interesting premieres in the historic Chinese theater. I saw the world premiere of Hitchcock, or maybe it was the American premiere. We saw the premiere. It was world premiere of Hitchcock, I think, and then the U.S. premiere of Skyfall. We had to see a James Bond movie in the historic Chinese theater, and it was the first time they'd shown it in the U.S. So,
which, if you don't know about the Chinese theater,
shame on you again.
No,
sorry.
I mean from a local standpoint.
Shame on you again. Oh, no, sorry. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
The movies that they typically show there are not necessarily the good movies.
Yeah, they're playing Maze Runner right now.
Well, yeah, but a lot of times they'll put something not that great in there because they know they can sell tickets in that theater no matter what they show.
You remember seeing like Yogi Bear in there? I was like, why is Yogi
Yeah.
Bear playing
Yeah,
this
so to see
beautiful
like a
theater?
really good movie there with a full theater, because that theater is huge.
That's changed a little bit now because they put one of the Fomax screens in there, the fake IMAX.
Yeah.
So they've renovated the theater, which I was.
I think they did a very good job with it.
They also changed the name, which I'm also not a very big fan of,
but I think they did a very good job with the renovation. They didn't change anything historical about it, but they did make it more comfortable.
Yeah, if you can guess.
But my point was
to
see a packed house in that theater for a really good movie is unusual. Like, normally if we were just going to go down there on a Friday night, it's going to be, whatever normal movie is playing, and it's not going to be packed because it's a huge theater.
Well, if you want to see one of the fake IMAX screens, it's the biggest IMAX screen in North America. So that's where you want to go if you really want to see one of those screens. But but again, when it's letterboxed up there, it doesn't really matter that much.
Yeah.
So AFI Fest, back to AFI Fest. The organization as a whole is, I actually really believe in the organization. I have paid for passes to AFI Fest. I think if you have the money to blow, that's awesome. It gets you in. Basically, make sure you can see any of the movies because you don't have to wait in line for hours. You get a special line that lets you in ahead of everyone else, so you can show up like 5 minutes before they let people in, and make sure you get a seat, which is great. It means you can see more movies per day.
Because you don't have to spend that time
waiting in line.
Hours waiting in line.
Yeah, if I have to wait for 2 hours in line, I can go see a movie for an hour and a half somewhere else.
Right.
They usually have movies playing at the Chinese theater. There's 6 screens in one theater, 1 screen at the big giant historic theater. And they also play movies at the Egyptian theater, which is run by American Cinematheque, and that's also another film preservation society. If you don't know about the Egyptian theater, you should check it out. It's also really beautiful. It's got a beautiful ceiling and really old seats, and especially if they play an old movie there. That Film Preservation Society has that theater. They put every single kind of projector that's ever been made for motion picture viewing. So including the just lost the word out of my head. The kind that blows up. The silver nitrate film.
Oh, right. The kind that blows up.
Yeah, the kind that
so
literally...
go check it out.
The kind that literally blew up film warehouses and they lost their films. But they're not allowed to show movies on silver nitrate there. But
because
they have preserved that stuff. They have preserved the equipment that does that. So, I swear to God, Apple. There we go. We're good. We're good, everyone. So we so I like AFI Fest. It can be rough if you really commit to it and you're really doing it for 7 days. It's a lot of movies. It's a lot of moving around. It's exhausting. People get cranky.
It is November,
it's run by a lot of volunteers. So I mean,
although it's LA, there can be a little weather. It can be cool.
I got super sick one year.
Yeah, you got.
I missed out on Lincoln, the world premiere of Lincoln, because
the
I got sick, and I'm convinced it was at Holy Motors. Actually,
you had the flu for sure. Like you had like a fever, and like it was bad.
I was out for weeks.
Oh yeah,
I was out for weeks. It was bad. So yeah, you can get sick at this thing. It can be rough, but it can also be really joyous. You get to I met Kurtwood Smith one year and hung out at the after party for Hitchcock. It was really cool.
All right.
Somebody hooked us up with some wristbands. Some just random person was like, "Hey, we're not going to the after party. Do you want these wristbands?" We're like, "Yes, we do." So we took them and went.
I think that it is a really good festival. I think that the nature of the way that they select the films for it means that you're less likely to see crappy films.
There are some that I don't enjoy, but
there are some that you won't enjoy. There are some
taste.
there are some that are weird. There are some that are definitely like art house films,
sure.
But it's not. It's for the majority of the films, they're not amateur. Like, they may be independent, but they...
And they may not be your cup of tea.
Yeah, but there's a passion and there's a for storytelling, and they pick the films very well, whereas a lot of festivals that do take a lot of submissions, it's a mixed bag.
Oh, really?
You know?
Absolutely.
I mean, like you were talking about Seattle International Film Festival, which is a very good film festival. They show them, I think
it's the largest film festival in the United States. It's like 4 weeks of film festival.
Oh my god, it's like a month long, and they show the most films of any film festival in the country, and that's good. That's a good thing, but it definitely means you're taking a risk with some of those films. Like,
absolutely.
they could be horrible.
Absolutely. I've definitely seen some bad films at film festivals.
Yeah.
So, you know.
So it's a little bit less risky. I mean, you still may see something you don't enjoy, but...
Yeah, we had some people come with us last year. They came to one movie, and the one movie they came to was not very good.
It was sad. Our least favorite from the festival, of course. Yeah,
absolutely my least favorite from that festival. Okay, so we're going to try and wrap things up here. I just want to do a spotlight. Normally, we've been doing a Twitch stream spotlight, but this week we're going to do a subscriber spotlight because we do have people that support us. You can support us by going to patreon.com/nolag, and you can subscribe and get some really cool perks and rewards, kind of like Kickstarter. It helps us out. It will help us get better equipment. We're really hoping to get more microphones so we can do a better podcast and be able to do better recording so the way the video looks better and whatnot. So if you want to help us out, again, patreon.com/nolag. I'll put the link in the description below. But we do have a subscriber that I want to spotlight. A gentleman in England. His Twitch username is xbluray, but it's XBLUREAY. And he has been an ardent supporter of ours. As a matter of fact, he's on vacation right now, and he's tweeted at us while on vacation. He lives in England, but he's on vacation somewhere else, in another country. And
his address is...
Yeah. Just kidding. Yeah, I realized that before, right when I was about to say where he is. So he's in another country, but he's tweeted at us. He actually, before he left, said, "Hey, look, I'm going to be gone for 2 weeks. If you don't see me on the stream, in the chat, this is why." This is a dude that like cares about what we're doing and understands the sort of the community feel that we're trying to do. He gets it. So really wanted to just give a shout out to him. So X Blu-ray on Twitch, really, really great guy. He always adds some great commentary to our chat. So thank you very much, dude. Appreciate your support. And you can follow us on Twitch at twitch.tv/nolagtillbrooklyn. Again, that description's in... No, that link is in the description below. Getting all mixed up, trying to wrap it up. So thanks for bearing with us for almost 2 hours. Really appreciate it, everyone. It's been 2 hours.
Every time we were about to start the podcast, you're like, "I'm afraid we don't have enough stuff to talk about. It's going to be a really short podcast," and then it never is.
But we actually talked about everything on the list for the first time, so that's pretty exciting. Thank you, everyone, for watching and or listening on iTunes and on YouTube. Appreciate it.